Yo, what is going on? We're talking about Detroit basketball. It's my little impression. All right, let's just get into it. Let's get the cringe out of the way up front, and let's just move forward. Thanks for clicking on the video. My name's Adam. I'm talking about the Detroit Pistons today and telling you why they're going to be the third to last team, the 13th seed in the Eastern Conference this season. I'm doing NBA preview, season preview videos for all 30 teams in the NBA. And we'll be talking about these things right here. Offseason moves for the Pistons, what their cap sheet looks like right now, rotations, and their win total according to Vegas. And before we get into the Pistons and talking about them, feel free to subscribe to the channel, like the video, comment, tell me where I'm wrong, tell me what you think the Pistons are going to do. They got some interesting players, and let's just jump right into it. Let's talk about what they did in the offseason here. Obviously, the biggest thing was the NBA draft. Drafting Cade Cunningham was a pretty easy decision, to be honest. While I do feel like there is potential that Jalen Green could be the best player in the draft, I do feel like Cade Cunningham is going to be he'll be the right pick for Detroit. So he's something definitely to be worthy to be excited about. Let's talk about the rest of their draft. If you've listened to my personal opinion about the Pistons and about their draft, it's not high. I mean, Cade Cunningham, congratulations, you drafted Cade Cunningham. You drafted the guy who everyone thought should go number one. Cool. What else did you do? Now, granted, they did pick in the second round for these next three selections, but wasn't crazy about them. Isaiah Livers, Luka Garza, who they just signed, had like a 2-year contract here that was signed recently. It blows my mind. And then Balza Kavricia. Yeah. Don't know about him. Let's talk about free agency here, though. They did bring in Trey Lyles. I don't understand that move, too. They have some front court players. Obviously, they have Jeremy Grant that can play either forward position. They also have Josh Jackson, who you could play at either forward position. Isaiah Stewart, who's going to explode this year and be a really good, solid player. So I don't understand the need of signing Trey Lyles and Kelly Olynyk. I like the Olynyk pickup. It will be interesting to see what his role is exactly with the team. Do they start him? Do they start him over Isaiah Stewart, who I think is a guy who could break out for the team? Interesting. Players that they lost out on or are no longer with the team. Tyler Cook waived. Sekou Doumbouya traded the Nets. Wayne Ellington signed with the Lakers. DeAndre Jordan was waived after being traded from the Nets. Rodney McGruder was waived. Jahlil Okafor was traded to the Nets, then later waived. Mason Plumlee was traded to the Hornets. Let's talk about that real quick. So Plumlee was traded to the Hornets. They were able to get off of not a horrible contract for Plumlee, but look, he's a center that they obviously didn't believe was going to be their future. They signed him last season and then they trade him the next season. That tells you one thing. That tells you that they're all in on Isaiah Stewart. So, let me throw some money at Isaiah Stewart being most improved player of the year. I want to see what the odds of that actually are, and I'll bet on it. All right, that's pretty much it for their offseason. So no huge changes. Again, bringing in the number one prospect, awesome. Bringing in a guy in Kelly Olynyk who was really solid for the Rockets after being traded from Miami, pretty good. Oh no, that's not the right thing. All right, let's break down the cap sheet here. So there is some part of me that wonders exactly what the end game is with Jeremy Grant. $40 million over the next 2 years. So I don't think it's a contract that you can say like, oh, we got to get rid of it. But I also think you can kind of look at it from the mindset of like, can we move off of it? Like, is it low enough to where we could potentially maybe get something? I don't know. I think Grant's probably going to stay there. And they like him there. And again, I don't think there's another player on the team that's going to be generating offense for the team. So yeah. Anyway, Kelly Olynyk, we already mentioned. Cade Cunningham making $20 million over these next couple of years before his team options kick in. Killian Hayes. We'll talk about Hayes in a minute, actually, just in the rotations portion. Hamidou Diallo, solid. Josh Jackson, cool. Corey Joseph might suck up minutes away from Killian Hayes and Cade Cunningham at the point guard position, so that's something that you don't really like to hear, but If Coach Dwayne Casey wants to keep playing Corey Joseph, cool. But you're not going to win because of it. Isaiah Stewart mentioned. Frank Jackson mentioned. Saddiq Bey and Saban Lee also provided pretty solid minutes for them last season. Magruder was waived, and then their dudes. All right. Let's now jump over to. Let's talk about their cap sheet. Look, so they're over the cap. So don't expect a move to be made that's like super crazy unless they involve Jeremy Grant. They can't trade Olynyk, I think, until like January because they just signed him to a contract in the summer. Other than that, I don't really see there being big moves for the team. Again, it's just all about grinding it out, having Cade Cunningham develop. Maybe you can get another solid year from Jeremy Grant. Maybe not because his usage will be a little less with Cunningham on the floor. And hopefully you get something out of Killian Hayes because he was your first round pick last year. And so you hope that actually takes place and happens. Speaking about Killian Hayes, this is the projected lineup for the Pistons according to Hoops Hype. They have Killian Hayes, Cade Cunningham, Jeremy Grant, Kelly Olynyk, and Isaiah Stewart. I think that's actually not a horrible lineup, but the issue is their reserves. Corey Joseph, Hamidou Diallo, who's all right, Saddiq Bey, Trey Lyles, shut up, and Luka Garza, get out. Like, okay, so they got like 6 solid players that I like, maybe even 5 because I'm not super crazy about Killian Hayes, and like 3 of those players I'm like, yeah, I'd like to have him like on my bench. Like I'd like to have Olynyk or Isaiah Stewart on my bench, Diallo on my bench. So Grant and Cunningham are kind of like the head honchos of this team. We obviously knew that going into the season. But it's really interesting to me. Look, this team was actually coached up pretty well last year. For having the number 1 pick, you would think that this team would be like Orlando, be like Cleveland, where they're just horrible on offense, horrible on defense as far as efficiency goes. And this Pistons team is actually a relatively middle-of-the-pack defense, which is pretty good given that the fact that they were picking number 1 overall last year. So I think that can probably stay in place. Hopefully Isaiah Stewart, being a young second-year player, doesn't pick up like a whole lot of fouls. Olynyk's not the greatest defender. He's more of an offensive player. So hopefully they can buy into a defensive culture there, which Dwayne Casey has provided. I mean, he was a good defensive coach in Toronto when he coached the Raptors. So maybe there is some kind of way for the Pistons to be able to say, okay, we're going to lock in on defense, and offensively we're just going to try not to turn over the ball as much because they were a really high turnover team last year. I don't know if that changes too much this year because one of the guys who's going to be handling the ball a lot is a guy who has a very high turnover rate in Cade Cunningham. He had a lot at Oklahoma State. So look, I think this team will be still probably a little bit of a mess offensively. Defensively, I think they'll be okay, but I do worry a little bit about like the minutes where Kelly Olynyk is on the floor and it's just him. He doesn't have Isaiah Stewart there. We'll see exactly what happens there. Again, not crazy about him, but I do feel like they provide a little bit more upside as opposed to teams like Cleveland or teams like Orlando. That's why they're third to last on my list and where I project them in the standings. And let's talk about the standings here really quick. So they actually have the Pistons at 24.5 wins. I will take the slight over and say they get to 25 or 26. Again, not huge, not crazy. I think they'll be good enough to win some games. I think it was this last year that they actually played pretty well with good teams. I think they played close with the Lakers. They played close with the Celtics when they played during the regular season. The Sixers, I think, was another game where they had a really close game with them. So this is a team that can, again, maybe slow down the game a little bit, grit and grind a little bit, see what you can get, but ultimately not a playoff team and not even a fringe bubble team. Again, they're the 13th seed according to me, so they're not really close to that bubble picture in my personal opinion. Look, have a good developing season with Cunningham and Hayes. Hope you get a good draft pick again. Hope that somebody falls to you in the draft, and then do it over again. And the real question will be exactly what Pistons management wants to do with Dwayne Casey, because I believe his first year there, I believe they made the playoffs. Might be wrong on that, as the 8th seed. But then ever since then, he hasn't made the playoffs. There was a COVID year last year, which kind of like maybe delays people's opinions on like firing a coach. So we'll see. Is Dwayne Casey on the hot seat? I don't know. I think he might deserve a better situation than Detroit, to be honest with you. Like if he would have gone to Indiana, that'd be awesome for him. Or even Portland, who needs to play defense. But yeah, that's it. Those are my opinions on the Pistons. I have them 13th in the East. Again, this could change. If we get like an injury report in the preseason, I'll kind of review this again days before we tip off the regular season and kind of look over and see if I want to make any adjustments. But yeah, these teams that we've talked about, these are all the teams that I'm like, yeah, these are picking top 5 in the draft next year. Tomorrow we'll get talking about teams that I actually think could be obviously in the bubble picture as far as the play-in game goes. Yeah, I don't know. We'll see. These next 3 days are going to be like teams that I really like could mix around. So we'll see. All right. That's it. Comment, subscribe, all that fun stuff. I'm going to go do something. I don't know. Subscribe.